Kia ora koutou katoa, no mai haere mai e tēnei hui ko tēnā whanai ahau, hei kaimahi ahau, he Ace Aotearoa me Ako Aotearoa. Great to see you all here today. I thought I'd choose a whakatauki today that might have, kind of give us a sense of the importance of discussion and consultation. And how leadership is important in that context. And of course, you in your own context as leaders with your akonga, with your learning. So, ko tā te rangatira kai he kōrero. Really important to keep that discussion open and going. Today, our topic is the fifth in a series, and this time it's about beliefs in practice, shaping teaching excellence through self-reflection. Great to have you all from around the country. And as many of you know, I'm based here in Christchurch, Otautahi, and I have had a range of experiences teaching adults in various places, as you can see there. The Women's Prison, the University, ARA, and work mostly for Ako Aotearoa, but have Thursdays working for ACE. These are the ACE teaching standards that I'm focused on in this session. You can see I've highlighted them there. So they come under the standard of commitment, and these are the indicators 2.1, 2.2, 2.3. There's quite a bit I could cover, so I will always be reasonably generalist in what I do cover, but please ask questions along the way. Obviously, there's a lot I could cover too, that's the other thing, under each of these indicators. So I have tried to highlight a few key things in the next hour that I think are important to focus on and to consider as an educator of adults, wherever you are and whatever group you're working with around the country. So the next thing I'll just want to focus on is the kaupapa. That's what we'll look at today. That the screen just gives you a sense of what we'll cover briefly, all of this on teaching philosophy, education approaches, core beliefs and reflection. And there'll be some time, a couple of times today, for you to talk together in a breakout room. So I have pulled together a few quotes for the session this morning. And they are ones that talk about education and learning. And I just thought to start off, I'd be interested in which of these four quotes really resonates with you, which ones you really like. So we have one from Einstein. Education is what remains after one has forgotten what one has learned in school. That's interesting. Then we have one from John F. Kennedy. The goal of education is the advancement of knowledge and the dissemination of truth. Then we have one from Mandela, Nelson Mandela. Education is the most powerful weapon which can use to change the world. And then the last one from Helen Keller. Life is a succession of lessons which must be lived to be understood. Interestingly, at this stage, none are from Aotearoa, New Zealand. But just out of those four, which one of those appeals to you? One of the things I'm interested in you talking about shortly are your beliefs about teaching and learning. So many people call this their philosophy of teaching. And I'm going to show you a number of slides that will talk about approaches to teaching. So they're going to be 5 slides, and please excuse me that I'm going to go into these very briefly, but it'll just give an overview of whether you think education is, from a theory or philosophy point of view, liberal, progressive, behaviourist, humanist, or radical. So there's going to be 5 different screens now, and at the end, I'm going to invite you to just talk briefly in a breakout room, and maybe just, I think maybe just 3, about what you think, which one of those you connect to the most. Now, I'm happy to go back over the screens. There's just going to be, as I said, 5 of them, but I'd be interested in your beliefs about teaching. Okay, so the first one that I'm going to share with you now is this one here, which is the slide that tells you which approach do you relate to, liberal, progressive, behaviourist, and radical. So I'm going in that order. And some of you may know some of this, and some may not. I guess just take it at face value on the screen today. Which one stands out for you? So the first one is liberal. So this is an approach where, and many people connect this to the philosopher Socrates. This is the idea where the educator is an expert who is the transmitter of knowledge and who directs the learning. So that's the idea about the liberal approach to education. The next one is a progressive approach, and John Dewey is known as the father, if you like, of the progressive approach. So we've had liberal, this time it's more about progressive. And this time, the teacher is an organizer who guides learning through experiences that are educative. So that's essentially the progressive approach in a nutshell. All of these are really condensed down for you to consider. The next one that we look at is the behaviourist. And B.F. Skinner is the theorist who is mostly connected with the behaviourist approach to education. And many of you may know of him in his approach to behaviour change through systems of reward and punishment, because many of the education system has been based on that. And of course, training dogs, for example, as he did, working with dogs and rats. So in this case, the educator is the manager and controller who predicts and directs the learning outcomes. So that's the behaviourist approach. So we've had 3 of the 5, liberal, progressive, behaviourist. And now the next one we're moving to is the humanist. And Malcolm Knowles, who's known as the father of adult education, is aligned to a humanist approach. So this is to develop people open to change, to enhance personal growth. And this is where the educator promotes but does not direct the learning. So slightly different to some of the other ones there. The last approach, and then I'll ask you which one do you connect to. And there's no judgment ever, of course, on this. The next one is the radical approach. And Paulo Freire, the father of the literacy movement, critical literacy movement, is connected mostly to the radical movement. So this time, the educator suggests, but does not determine, direct them for learning. So that's slightly different again from the humanist. So there's our 5 there. So we had Socrates, if you like, even though he's not particularly, we're not 100% sure there. But it's Socrates, then we had Dewey, then we had Skinner, then we had Knowles, and finally Freire. Which approach do you relate to? Liberal, progressive, behaviourist, humanist, radical. Okay, Talofa, welcome back. Good to see you. I just was ahead from one group. Anne-Marie, do you mind repeating that again, what your group came up with?
That we like the humanist and the progressive approaches, and maybe empowering the students to learn, and that the education was a process. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, fair enough. Oh, good. Thank you for that feedback. What about the other group? Group 1, was it? Yeah. What were there any similarities for all of you?
Progressive and humanist
Yes.
were definitely there. And I had to put my hand up and say, when I read behaviouralist reward and punishment, I went, but I am doing the reward myself at the moment. If some ladies can stand up and give a little talk, we're going to go out for coffee. So I want them to drive it as a team and support each other. But I won't force it too uncomfortable. So that is reward. I haven't done that before, but I'm trying it.
Yeah, cool. And, nothing wrong with that to give it a go. And thanks, Marie, for speaking on behalf of that group, because it's interesting, isn't it, that both groups are like the combination of progressive and humanist. But nothing wrong with adding in a bit of behaviourist. I think any of us who may have pets or children have used that technique well and truly. And as you say, it still works really well with adult learners. There's so many adult learners I've worked with love a prize, love a competition, love a reward. I think it's when it's just used only as an approach that there can be difficulties. And certainly many of you will know that from reading and listening to people talk about learning in the olden days, if you like, or learning in more traditional approaches and to traditional cultures where behaviourism was favoured more than anything else. So thanks for having a think about that, and I always personally appreciate the opportunity to reflect on my practice and think about why I do what I do, which is often thinking about my own philosophy. And further to that, I have some more ideas here. This time, these are New Zealand based, in that they are based, these quotes, on things that people have said, but they are made by Ako Aotearoa. I know some of you might actually have these quotes, but again, I'm interested in which of these is important to you. So I have 6 of these posters here. And again, some of these you may know already, but what about this one, number 1? This time I'll just ask you in the chat to tell me which one you like the most. Tell me and I'll forget, show me and I may remember, involve me and I'll understand. Number 2 is the person who does the work does the learning. This is always a reminder to me as an adult educator that it's about getting the learner to work the most. Number 3, adult learners need to know why they're learning, what they're learning, and where it leads. Number 4, the most important single influencing learning is what the learner already knows. So that's that whole understanding of the adult learner bringing prior knowledge. And the final one there, number 5, is learning is like opening a door, not filling a container. So that's quite a shift away from a more traditional model. And then finally, we have number 6, which is when students cannot learn the way we teach, we have to teach the way they learn. So let's have a look what some of you are saying here in the chat. If you could write in the chat there. So Emery likes number 3. Yeah, thank you. Number 6 for you, Andrea. Oh, sorry, number 5, not number 3. Thanks, Emery. Anyone else? What else do you like there? Number 1 for Leah. When you teach students how to learn and critical thinking, they could go on and learn anything. And number 6 is good too. Yeah, it's hard to choose one, isn't it? Great, thanks, Leah. Marie, you like 4 and 6 too? Yeah, so quite a variety. Number 3 for Judith. Yeah, lots of different ones we love there. Number 2 for Mariko. Yeah, number 1 and 3 there. Lynn, thank you, Lynn. Thanks for that. Okay, so yeah, that's good to see quite a variety there of different posters that are important to you. What I'm going to do next is show you a clip. And many of you may know this clip from a movie called Dead Poets Society. And I'm showing it because it's an important clip for me and reminder about what I think is important in my teaching. And so I just wanted to share this with you as a setting the scene for the next bit when I'm going to invite you to think about some core beliefs for you and your teaching. So it's just a very short clip here with Robin Williams and talking about being the teacher as he is in this movie.
Why do I stand up here? Anybody?
To feel taller.
No. Thank you for playing, Mr. Dalton. I stand upon my desk to remind myself that we must constantly look at things in a different way. See, the world looks very different from up here. You don't believe me? Come see for yourselves. Come on. Come on. Just when you think you know something, you have to look at it in another way. Even though it may seem silly or wrong, you must try. Now, when you read, don't just consider what the author thinks. Consider what you think. boys, you must strive to find your own voice. Because the longer you wait to begin, the less likely you are to find it at all. Thoreau said most men lead lives of quiet desperation. Don't be resigned to that. Break out. Now don't just walk off the edge like lemmings. Look around you. There you go, Mr. Christie. Thank you. Yes. Dare to strike out and find new ground.
But it is a really heartwarming movie to watch, and particularly about teaching. Anyone care to share what it stood out for them from watching that brief clip of that teacher who was teaching in a traditional school but tried to do things in a different way?
Yeah, I listed down the very familiar and popular quote from Robin Williams, "The world
Yes,
is different from here."
yes,
So, and he said that when he climbed up the table, and then he encouraged all of his students to do the same. So which
yes,
means I reflect on a teacher being progressive, at the same
yes,
time very humanist. And
yes.
of course, because I am teaching adults, so I need to know, and I need to make sure that where my learners are coming from, I should always understand and empathize. Yeah, I think so many observations, because I also saw that movie. I think.
Thank you, Judith, for sharing that. Yeah, the world is different from here, and yeah, after seeing that movie, it challenged me as an educator to try different approaches, to look at things in a different way. And I know many of us are doing that, but it was particularly poignant for me to see how he encouraged those guys to find their voice, to consider, the world in a different way, which is why I chose that clip, because I think as educators, we're always doing that and trying to encourage our learners to find their own voice. And what does he say? Just when you think you know something, yeah, it's different, or you look at it in a different way. So, in many respects, it's about critical reflection and critical observation and enabling our learners to learn. Mari, did you have anything more to add? Because I know you'd seen the movie as well.
He empowered them.
He
Standing
did.
up on his own, he was in control. But then
Yes,
he got down and
yes,
gave each one of them the power
nice,
and look
nice.
at it differently. And
Yeah,
and I thought that worked really well. If you haven't seen that movie, it's a brilliant movie to watch. Absolutely
yeah,
brilliant. Try and
yeah.
rectify if you haven't seen it.
Thanks, Murray. Okay, so yeah, I think for that, it is exactly right. He encouraged them. It wasn't just about him having the experience, it was about enabling his learners to as well. So he got them to do exactly what he did, see the world in a different way. Okay, let's move on now to looking at further ideas about what is important to you in your teaching. And I am going to share with you another 6 slides about core beliefs. So these are some core beliefs that have been taken from a website that I've got the reference for you at the end, with a whole lot of ideas about philosophy of education, core beliefs. I've chosen 6, and after the 6, I'm going to give you another 5 minutes for a breakout room, and it'll be a different breakout room. And in that room, you can talk again about which of these core beliefs are important to you, or any core beliefs, actually. Sorry, you don't need to talk about these 6. Talk about your core beliefs in this group. Okay, but here are 6 I've found just as triggers to think about. And then when you get to your room, please talk about your own core beliefs. Okay, so the first one is education isn't just about what students learn, but about learning how to learn. So this is some core belief about education. It isn't just about what students learn, but about learning how to learn. The next core belief is a good education prepares students to be productive and empathetic members of society. The second core belief about being productive and empathetic. So they're just tips of these. Teachers help students embrace new information, new ways of seeing the world around them. That's our third one, about embracing new information, seeing the world. The next one is, I believe education is key to empowering, today's youth, so they'll feel confident in their future careers, relationships, and duties as members of their community. So it's a slightly different one, slightly longer, but empowering, so they'll feel confident in their future careers, relationships, and duties as members of their community. But just two more now to look at. And this one is, well-educated students are open-minded, welcoming the opinions of others and knowing how to evaluate information critically and carefully. So that's someone's belief about learning in students, what they think their students are, and what's important to them. And then the final one for today, this number 6, a strong education with a focus on fundamentals ensures students can take on any challenges that come their way. So they're all slightly different, but they all just invite us to think about core beliefs. And that's what you'll have an opportunity to do now, is to share what is important to you in your teaching. So again, no judgment, and they don't have to be anything like those core beliefs I've just shown you. They were just kind of warming you up to thinking about, so what is important to me in my teaching? We don't often have the chance to talk about our philosophy, what drives us, what inspires us in our teaching. Welcome back. Anyone have any comments they'd like to share? You don't need to, but anyone want to share anything that from your group, please, today?
One of our ladies mentioned three-dimensional learning, which I thought was a really good tool, and how to go about learning. Independent learning leads to life learning.
Nice, yeah.
And we certainly like to empower our students in their learning, but to go out into the world and be more confident in society.
Fantastic. So they were some really key things that stood out. That's great. Thanks very much, Marie. Who was the one who talked about three-dimensional learning? Who was that? Do you remember?
That was me. You know, just
yeah.
I just love the face-to-face. I mean, this is fine right now, has its uses, you know, when we're spread across the country. But yeah, I think we're doing too much, you know, just two-dimensional experiences in life. And I think we need to have more, you know, interaction with people and relationships and things in a three-dimensional way.
Yeah, sure. Fantastic. Thank you for reminding us all of that. But yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, we're reliant sometimes too much on just the screen communication. Cool. Let's move on. Did the other group have anyone there who would like to say anything that you talked about in your group today?
Yeah, we talk quite a bit about relationships. So building relationships and having good communication, otherwise the rest doesn't happen. So yeah,
sure. Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, really key. Oh, well, thank you for spending a bit of time there. I hope you found that was useful. Of course, hearing from others, but being able to talk yourself about why you do what you do. What's your driver? I think that often, as I said, we don't get that opportunity. So just before we finish, part of the teaching standards focus today was on the importance of reflection. So I've got a little bit longer to talk about reflection today and the importance of that. So one of the philosophers we met earlier today, John Dewey, said this. So John Dewey comes to us from the progressive approach in education. And one of his key quotes was this one: we do not learn from experience, we learn from reflecting on experience. And that's why, as many of you know, that's why the importance of giving learners the opportunity to think about the so what's important, what did I learn today, what am I going to use tomorrow that I haven't learned previously. I always, think about this one myself. If sadly, I have had a few traffic fines in my life. And I think, this is where I've had an experience of getting fined for speeding. Usually it's on open roads, let me assure you. But it's, so I'm not learning from the experience. I mean, I'm not even learning from the punishment. But sadly, I'm learning. I do notice that by reflecting on the experience and realizing, what I'm doing, I tend to learn more and stop myself from speeding than I do by just having the experience. So that's a bit of a funny example, but I think what it does do is remind us about the importance to reflect on what that learning, the impact of that learning, and of course that is a loss of demerit points, a loss of money, and a loss of perhaps, being a good citizen, but a model to my children trying to be a good driver. So reflection is really key for any learning experience. The next slide is showing you some ideas here about what we use reflection for, or what we can do as what it is really. And it's usually at the end of a session some activities that will actually reinforce the learning that we have already experienced. Sometimes we may want to make the opportunity for learners, for ourselves, to organise a plan for the next step. So we reflect and think, how will we put this into place? Or it could be just an opportunity to talk, think on the experience. So it's about purposefully, that's the key there, purposefully going over it and thinking about the learning and thinking, what does this mean? How am I going to apply this in my life? For some people, this model might be more useful. The next slide is a model here of reflection. And that's the idea here in the model of having the experience. You can see there, like Dewey said, we reflect on it, and then that enables us to develop new ideas, and then we put those into practice. So this is for any learning, for us as an educator, but also, of course, for the learner themselves. And I really like this quote that's in the free Ako Aotearoa book, the plug there, sorry, that you can get online. This book here, if you just key in signpost, there's a book about teaching adults. But they talk in that book about the process of reflection will ensure your continuous growth as an adult educator. So for me, and thinking about, the working with the teaching standards in the ACE sector, it's very key to ensure that I keep developing and learning as an adult educator. And this kind of model really helps me think about that as far as even teaching that I do. Anyone have any comments on that model or any of those comments that I've just made about reflection?
At the end of the class, I like to ask the students what they've learned. One thing, what can you take away? And if I don't get a good response, I need to evaluate myself. What haven't I, my way of teaching, whatever that might be.
Yeah, I like that, Marie. Thank you. And as you say, yes, it gives us a sign, doesn't it? If they aren't able to tell us anything, it's like, oh, what have I taught them today? Yeah. So, I like that. Anyone else? What else do you do to enable your learners to reflect? And then what do you do? I know some educators use this kind of model and actively sit down and talk about it, particularly if they're co-teaching. Sorry, I interrupted someone.
Yeah, I like all of this, what you've got here. And for me, I do, excuse me, active reflection. And sometimes it's not like right afterwards, because sometimes I'm not sure, but it's the next day or later that day. And I know for me, taking time to actually process things between events, not leaving no space in my day, but just stopping and reflecting on things, because then I can see where I need to do things differently. And I like your example of the speeding ticket, because I mean, it's about reflecting on all of life, really. I had a very
Yes.
busy day the other day and was stressed out, and I just reflected on what I could have done differently in my day.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a
Yeah.
lifelong process, reflecting on life as well as
Yes.
learning education. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Emery. And I like your point about, yes, sometimes we don't have the chance to do it straight away because we're rushing off to take another class, meeting another learner, meeting another manager or a colleague. And I think it's sometimes not till later that I might sit down or be walking or sadly driving. Sorry, talking about my driving again. But I'll switch off my brain and it'll something else. I'll think about it in another way, just a different context. And so that's when the reflection process helps me think about, so what didn't quite work today. And certainly I've been lucky as far as this series goes because there's always very kindly days on afterwards, and we often go through this process of reflection, of thinking about different ways, what worked, what didn't, because they're all different and new every time. It is, obviously a great learning experience for me. So reflection I find a really powerful tool for improving the way I teach, the way I work with anyone online or face to face or one to one. Anyone else have any comments about what they do and with their learners to enable them to reflect, or what you might do as an educator? Yes, I like what, so what, now what. Yeah, that's a good one, isn't it? A good, great one to finish with. And then sometimes people are lucky enough to have formal peer supervision with another person each week. Yeah, which really helps me to reflect. It's lovely to be able to set that up, Anne Marie. And for those of you, wherever you are in the country, you may want to start doing that or set it up within your team because it can be incredibly valuable. And I know I've learned a lot from it. Let's just carry on because you know what's coming next, isn't it? I'm going to ask you to reflect on today because we're coming to the end. So what? I'm just using the so what. So throughout today's session, you've had a chance to think about you and your philosophy of education, your philosophy of teaching, what drives you, why you do what you do. And this moment here gives you all a chance to think, so what? Before we close, can you write something in the chat, or if you want to share something that you'll do that's different? So I just want to recap on what we did today. We went through some quotes, remember at the start. Many of you liked the Helen Keller quote or the Nelson Mandela quote. And then we looked at some beliefs around teaching and learning. And again, it seemed like progressive and humanist were the most popular there. Some of you might want to follow up on that or not, but you may wish to find out more. And then we had the movie clip in the break. Viv reminded me that she was 1 year old when that film came out. So I'd forgotten that it was old. It was 1989 that the movie came out. So those of you who haven't seen it, you may wish to watch it because as I said to Viv, it's one of my favourite movies with Robin Williams and says a lot about teaching, I think, and particularly for young men, young boys, but just about teaching in general. And then after that, you had a chance, of course, to work in breakout rooms and talk about your core beliefs. I started the ball rolling with 6 core beliefs, and we had the posters, the Apple posters. So, is there anything there that you'll do differently? So thank you all of those who reflected. I know some of you might want to reflect a little bit later as well. Thank you all very much for attending today. I have just put in there some ideas for next steps. And some of you I know are attending our masterclass on teaching standards, but also don't forget you've got the teaching standards there to look at. I'll close with our karakia whakamutunga today. Kia mutu a mātou mahi mō tēnei wā, manakitia mai mātou katoa, o mātou hoa, o mātou whānau, e o te orangi. So peace to all of you. Thanks everyone for joining in and contributing. And thanks very much for your comments. Lots of ideas. Thanks so much, everyone. I look forward to catching up with you next month, because the next month's session, there's the references, and I have those references in the handout I send you, but you'll